Here we are again. Welcome, welcome. It's Monday night, this favorite time of the week for me. I put this on Monday because it's, Monday, Blues Mondays, or, I don't know. I love Mondays, and this is my favorite part. We're talking about BioBridge. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of BioBridge. How have you been, Ibrahim, for the past 2 weeks? Did you miss me?
Oh, of course, I miss you every time, and I look forward to Monday. Just like you. No, yes, no, yes, yes. How are you?
Have you? Well, busy. Busy is always good. I'm preparing for Bio,
Oh,
the
yes,
the
yes.
the event in San Diego. Getting lots of things set up, running 2 panels. I'll have a panel at Resi conference, and I'll have a panel at BoPen. One's really about just the VCs and CVCs, and the other is really about how to access Japan through operations, through funding. So we'll have some money talk there too, but a lot of operations and also institutions that sort of help you soft land in Japan.
Very nice, sir. Living what you're professing. That's great.
Exactly. And not as part of that, but this is what we do, right? We connect Japan and the rest of the world. A lot of that is the U.S., but today we have some experts who are actually living in Japan, but they're British. I think both of them. I don't know. One, at least one is British,
I
but
guess we'll learn.
the company the company is a UK based global consultancy, and we um and they are in Japan. They are experts at inbound and outbound work in advanced therapy. So we're talking cell and gene therapy and that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun today. Let's bring in our guests. Let me put them on stage and say
All
hello
right.
to Andrew and hello to Zain. Zain, some of you, if you have seen our previous episodes, Zain was here in another capacity, but today he is part of GRA. How are you guys doing?
And
Good, thank you.
Yeah, doing really well, thank you. Cheers, Thomson.
I was gonna
It
say
is.
you leveled up, Zain, as
Yeah,
the
I feel like
Japanese video
am I
game
just
servers
do I just get
level
up
up.
the career ladder every time
Yes.
we have a podcast? It'll be pretty interesting. Where will I be next?
So we welcome the folks from Tokyo. Or no, you guys are in Osaka,
Kobe, actually.
Are both of
same
you in
region.
Kobe?
Yep.
Yep.
Excellent.
Kobe is actually an interesting area. We should talk about that somewhere in our discussion today. But hey, I'm talking to you from my mobile office. I'm just outside the studio where my daughter is taking her dancing lessons. So the lighting's a little weird, but got to do what we got to do. So how's the morning in Kobe today?
You and Ibrahim were talking about Monday blues. It's Tuesday here, but we've got an
That's
inbound
right.
typhoon, so pretty
Oh
dreary.
yes.
But can't complain, to be honest with you.
Yep. Wet and probably going to get wild in the next few hours. So let's see how that day progresses.
Really? Oh yeah. I saw an event got canceled at iPark. I think. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, they canceled the in person portion. It's a hybrid event, so they're gonna have the online session. But anywho. So again, welcome Zain and Andrew. You guys are from GRA. Tell us about yourself and also sort of introduce what you guys do.
Sure. So I'm Zain. I think you and Ibrahim both know me quite well. I'm currently head of business development APAC at GreyRigge Associates. I'm essentially responsible for consulting on all the BD sides for our clients and also, I guess, bringing in new clients for our firm. In terms of GreyRigge Associates and what we do, to put it as simply as possible, we help our Japanese counterparts globalize quite rapidly and get competitive on both the development side of biotech and also the global partnering side of biotech. And then on the inbound side, we also help a lot of Western, your American, European, British biotechs enter the Japanese market. And at this point, probably doing 50-50 of both.
And I guess from
Very good.
myself,
Yes, please.
I guess I'm a founder and I guess partner and principal consultant for the Japan arm of GreyRigge. Been in, I guess, medical research for greater than 30 years, certainly worked in public health, but also in industry as well. I've worked in the UK, in Australia, in Singapore, and now in Japan as well. And as Zain has explained, which is pretty much what the company does. I won't get into that again as well. So I think we're good.
Well, but we do want to know our guests a little more personally. We'd like to know first, what got you to Japan? How long you've been there? What's the thing that you love the most of Japan, other than natto?
Zain, do you want to go first? Or do you want me to dive in?
Andrew, I feel like I always take these things first, so you should go first.
So I guess a bit more depth. So I was actually born in Jamaica. My family has a long history there.
Wow.
I did my university in Scotland at St Andrews in the UK. Worked in Royal London Hospital for a while, but then went down to Adelaide and also Perth in Australia. Moved back to the UK, worked in government positions there, and then moved to Singapore, where I worked in some of the institutes there.
Singapore's the first Asian stop for you?
Yes, it was. That's right.
And
so spent about
why?
18 years. So it was interesting. At the time, Singapore was developing a lot of the stem cell based, I guess, approaches, but also predominantly around the non-coding RNA. And certainly I had a background in hormone-dependent cancers, working in the RNA field as well. So from there, that kind of sprung, quite a number of publications, and I worked with people like Isidore Rigutzos, who's now at Thomas Jefferson, who is probably, a world leader in non-coding RNA side of things. So, and also some very good Singaporean, I guess, postgrads as well as postdocs as well. So, we had a number of publications both in Nature and Cell as well, just to give some examples from that time in the life. As to why I ended up in Japan, so my wife actually works for a Japanese company, and so she got posted here, and so I shifted over as well. So I wasn't going to do the thing where she lives in one country and I live in another. It was going to be we stick together no matter what. So
good for you.
But hence why I'm here, and hence why the whole thing was actually founded in Kobe. In
How many years now?
So I've been here now just over 3 years. So
okay, all right. Zain.
Yeah, sure. So born and raised in the UK, British Pakistani, so was navigating two cultures my whole life. I think I was quite different to the other British Pakistanis around me in that, I love the British side, I love the Pakistani side. And that's really, I guess, played a big role here in my role in Japan too. How did I end up in Japan? So I was in oncology research back in the UK, was interviewing for PhDs quite half-heartedly. I was terrible in the lab. I really liked theory. I liked scientific communications and presentations and really getting deep into that. However, maybe I shouldn't say this on a podcast, but, I just wanted to end it all anytime I was in the lab. And so I realized, well, with that being said, I probably shouldn't pursue a PhD. Ended up in Japan just for a year to figure my life out, teaching English and science, self-taught Japanese for about 3.5 years, realized it was probably about time to put my big boy boots on, and got into recruitment in Japan. That really allowed me to understand the pharma, biotech, and even medical device market in Japan. From that, I realized I was really good at business development, negotiations and bringing in new clients. And the rest is history. Andrew and I met, I think, midway last year. I was supposed to just give Andrew some advice on how to bring in more business in Japan. I think perhaps those conversations went too well, and here I am working with and for Andrew. So yeah, the rest is
You
history.
recruited yourself in.
Yeah.
That's persuasive. All right.
I fell for it, so let's put it that way. No. He's very good at what he does, so that's
Thank
why
you.
he's here.
Well, he is. You know, we talked. I don't know. I don't remember how we met. Was it through Ibrahim but we got talking, and then before you know it, we were in like an izakaya in Osaka, and we were like, or in Tokyo, and we were just like drinking away. Oh, it was in Osaka. Yeah. And hey, we were telling asking each other about our deepest problems in family life and personal stuff, and getting very close very quickly. So he's good at opening people's hearts, I think. So all right, so let's bring it back to the work part of things, GreyRigge, and also advanced therapies, and most importantly, Japan and the rest of the world. So you guys, you mentioned you do inbound and outbound work, helping global clients come to Japan, helping Japanese clients go global. So how's business? I can imagine there must be a lot of stuff going on right now, especially in the advanced therapies, because Japan is, in fact, very well known for advanced therapies, for everything that's happening.
You want to start out with the outbound then?
Sure. In terms of outbound, it's booming at the moment. Oftentimes Andrew and I have, we're working to like 8, 9 p.m. most days just because there's so much to do, and it's really quite fun. We've been working a lot with Japanese counterparts, navigating European markets, Belgium, for example, and I guess doing a tachiage company setup in America as well.
Nice.
So lots of work to be done there, and I think we are quite good at helping them understand the local markets there. We can speak a bit more in detail if you guys want to know specifics. So please do ask away.
No, for now, I want to know the trends. Like, business is booming. Is it more outbound, more inbound? What kind of companies are coming in? What kind of companies are going out? And sort of what you mentioned. What are the things that they're looking for? Kind of, if you can sort of go around these topics without going into too much detail.
Okay, sure. So in terms of the outbound, the kind of experiences we're seeing a lot of are, Japanese Biotech X has partnered with a CDMO in the West. I have to keep this really vague so I don't get in trouble.
Of course.
Essentially, what we do there is we really de-risk that relationship between the biotech and the Western CDMO. Oftentimes, there's a lot of lapse in communication or understanding between the two counterparts. And these can be at really critical phases in development. So, for example, right before commercialization or right before a clinical trial. The Japanese stakeholder can't really afford to make a mistake here, but they've only really got word of mouth in terms of what's actually going on in the CDMO. So we found a lot of success in, being a British origin company, employing, subject matter experts, whether they're in CMC, quality, manufacturing, to really get in there with the CDMO, do an audit if necessary, and, act as a person in plant or as a liaison. This is a really crude way of saying it, but to really whip the CDMO into shape and get them to honor the contract and timelines.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I mean, one of the other aspects as well that kind of, I guess, keeps us up to date is that we also work across the different offices. So, for example, we'll be working on, client contracts in the US, the UK, the EU as well, not just Japanese. And so it means, we're always pretty much keeping up to date as to what people or what's going on in the different parts of the world as well. And that kind of helps us feedback right the way across and back into Japan, and also, I guess, across APAC as well. Sorry, Zain, to jump in there.
No, Andrew, I think that's a really good point. And to build on what Andrew's saying, more generally, why I think we found a lot of successes, we're not technically a Japanese consultancy, and we'll never pretend to be. But that really works for our advantage because we are really good at what we do in the UK and the US. That really allows us to tell our Japanese counterparts what is best practice, is this normal or acceptable, or does some work or due diligence need to be done here, or some renegotiation need to be done here. Another example is setting up a branch in the US. Rexel did it really successfully. They're really hot right now. I think a lot of Japanese, and I think a lot of Japanese stakeholders are seeing that and starting to think outside of the box, and even adopt the Rexel model. To that end, there are really cost-effective ways to enter the American market.
I was going to ask. Yeah, I was going to ask because they did what is called a neat version, which is something that's, it takes a lot of commitment to do something like that. And I don't know, is that like the trend, or is this only like bigger, startups or biotechs like Rexel that can do that, or Shinobi, right? These are companies that do this kind of stuff, but it is smaller, first project kind of companies. Are they also asking you to do something like that?
Yeah, we work with a number of companies in preclinical, or the company name hasn't been decided, and it's just a concept even.
Wow.
And even these founders are seriously and strongly considering, setting up a small satellite office in the US. And this is really from day one of their developmental strategy. To that end, as a thought exercise as well, we've spoken with our consultants in the US. We've really got it down to a science in terms of how to set up in the most cost-effective manner. So my only word of advice on entering the US market is that it can be done really well, and it can be done almost for free at the start. And if anyone, that there are really smart and elegant ways to set up your company in the States.
Wow. Keyword, almost for free.
That's almost for free. Yeah. Almost.
Everybody loves that.
I mean, with the yen being
we spoke about this our last episode, right? With Joel. He was talking about entry into the US and doing it cost effectively.
Yeah, and it's certainly doable. That's what we're seeing, but you need to look around and make sure that you're, I guess, connecting with the right people in the right environment. And I think that's where people's network really starts to play a big role, so that you can start to make it cost effective. Because again, what you want is any of the startup biotechs in particular, you want them to get right the way through to commercial. You don't want them burning their money out in 6 months or 12 months and then nothing else happens. That then just becomes a waste, especially if it's technology or a therapy that could really potentially make a dramatic change to the world as well. And and we can talk about some of this a bit later on, but certainly I think part of that then also reflects on why people would want to come into Japan, and it's based around how PMDA is structured and what the Japanese government is actually driving to. But that's more on the inbound side of it, and we're still talking about the outbound. So I'll stop there for now.
I just want to add to what Andrew's saying. Cost effectiveness, and then trusted consultants as well. I think those are the two biggest points. I attend a lot of networking events in Japan, and I really try to understand what the elites in pharma and biotech in Japan are thinking. I'm very lucky to consider, some real giants in Japan whose shoulders I stand on, like ex-Shionogi, ex-Astellas, people that I can say are in my network and, advisors to me. I really try to understand what their best practices and thinking are. And something that's really key to what they're telling everybody in Japan is that, you know, you have to use trusted consultants, especially in EU, US, and referrals go a lot longer. The worst thing you can do is get into bed with either a small-time consultant or someone who really doesn't know what they're doing, and all of a sudden you've burnt a lot of capital for very little. So, you know, trusted referrals and trusted consultants. And I think Tetsu's quite good at this as well. He's always providing lovely referrals to us.
You know, I was thinking you don't want to climb the Everest without a Sherpa. And, you know, sometimes it could be life and death, life and death of your company. If you're going to try to, you know, attack the you know, hugely competitive markets, huge market, but hugely competitive, like the US, you know, a Sherpa can really help you navigate the environment and in the end, save you a lot of time and a lot of money, and increase your rate of success. Definitely, you know.
Tetsu, I just want to pick up on something you mentioned earlier about the weak yen, for example. You know, biotech founders are under constant pressure and stress to really extend their runway and get their value for every dollar or yen that they spend. You know, given the global economy and current global situation, this is more prevalent now than ever for Japan. So I think for Japanese counterparts entering Western markets, it's really about de-risking, to be honest with you.
And I think, and just to follow up quickly on that, Zain, I mean, what's interesting, and it counts, I think, for all startups, I think, anywhere in the world, but especially Japan, when you look at how PMDA wants things to be structured, it's really putting that correct framework in place that's going to drive you towards success. And it's pretty much built into the ICH guidelines around quality by design and everything like that. And so if you actually start building that within your framework very early on, it really means, you know, across all the different functionalities within your company, everybody's on the same page and everybody's driving towards the same, you know, direction and goals. But not only that, it then means that whichever jurisdiction you decide that you want to actually do your clinical trials in, you're pretty much ready to go. There are nuances across the different jurisdictions, but certainly, you know, you're pretty much, you know, 85, 90% there if you follow that kind of approach. So, sorry, Zain, I was just...
No, I think it's an excellent point.
Let me just finish this thought with one more comment, I think. The yen is weak. It's very difficult for the companies, but I think Japan has really united, and the whole government is pushing and helping the whole ecosystem with lots of different types of grants, some huge grants, some for therapeutics, some for medtech. It's really like the whole country is trying to lift and like the whole system and reboot the once world leading therapeutics ecosystem that was Japan. And we're seeing the effects of that, and we're seeing lots of companies going outwards, and with the support of the government. The government is also saying, you know, try to set things up, you know, with the global in mind from day one, and they're putting money behind it, and so it's looking good. It's really, I think, looking good. So, all right, so that's it. Let's look at it from the other side of the coin. You guys are, you know, placed right at the interface of the Japanese world and the global world. Let's if we're looking inwards from the outside towards Japan, why should any company, you know, go to Japan? What are the opportunities, especially in this domain of advanced therapies? You know, what is it, the preclinical stuff or the clinical stuff, the regulatory? What is it that you think that people should capitalize on?
Tetsu, can I be a really annoying podcast guest and backtrack to the previous question just for a moment?
Go right on ahead.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to get this across because I think, you know, Andrew and I have been really lucky in terms of, you know, speaking directly with AMED, you know, other ecosystem boosters within Japan as well. And I think the current question being asked at the policy level is, do we hyper specialize at what we're already good at? So, your onco, neuro, regenerative medicine, or do we build in those and, focus on other therapeutic areas or modalities? I don't want to speak for Andrew, but I think his advice in all of these talks has been, do what you're good at, but still keep building in all of these other areas, because if you don't do that, you'll get caught really quite weak, or with your pants down, so to speak. So yeah, Andrew, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really comes down to how do you strategize in being able to react? Because again, if you look at it from an evolutionary point of view, if you're too fixed, then you become, obsolescent very, very quickly. Whereas if you actually maintain the capability to be able to react, especially as not just internal forces change, but also as global forces change, and you still have that capability to not only achieve to be the best, but also be able to stay best right the way across the whole spectrum, which is, I think, where Japan is wanting to get to, especially in the ATMP side of things as well. Zain, I don't know if you wanted to say anything more about it, but I can jump in and start answering Tetsu's question that he just asked as well, if you're ready to move forward on that.
I have a follow-up question as well.
Go for it.
In terms of trends that you're seeing, you kind of started answering this question in terms of outbound business. Like, what is the trend that you're seeing in terms of modality, et cetera, et cetera? Like, who's most interested right now in going outbound?
Andrew, go for it.
No, I'll let you answer that one first if you want. I mean, if you okay. So a lot of it tends to be around the stem cell side of things, and that's predominantly because that is where one of the huge strengths within Japan lies. And also with regards to, I guess, PMDA being quite progressive on that front with, putting in place the regulations around, iPS cell technology and everything like that. Certainly that's driving that industry within Japan, but then also, then means people want to move out of Japan and actually, explore that. So, right the way through, I think a lot of stem cell based products and even T-cell technology too. What we're seeing on the manufacturing front as well is that there's a lot of new smaller CDMOs that can be quite agile here in Japan too, predominantly around monoclonal antibody production. But certainly I think, the world trend is moving towards, antibody-based technologies, even ADCs and things like that as well. So you can see the positioning is starting to become really good. And what's nice about it is that the regulatory authorities here in Japan are really starting to be, very helpful with regards to driving uniqueness in the Japan system. So again, they were the first country to authorize, self-regulating RNA systems as well. So you can see the progression there. They've also been, following a lot of the CRISPR clinical trials as well, and looking at off-target effects, and have been, very, I guess, progressive in how they're looking at things. Exosome-based products as well. How do you, regulate, what's good, what's bad, especially when you have massively complex systems where, you have a lot of non-coding RNAs, different cytokine components and everything like that. So, PMDA have been very active, even when working with the NIHS as well, to really start to understand and see how to better drive those. That then sets up a nice system, I think, for overseas companies who really want to drive their products, not just into Japan, but certainly, I think, globally as well. Japan has become, because of the diversity that now exists in Japan, it is a good place to go for first-in-human trials as well. It doesn't have to be a Japan-only trial too. So again, all that's happening as well. So all those bits and pieces are now coming together. Finally, that's really driving a really nice ecosystem or environment. I think both for inbound as well as also driving that outbound side of things as well.
Look, I'd say one of the elephants in the room is yen is weak. It's very hard for Japanese companies to go out, but global companies wanting to do a first in human in Japan, tremendous timing. With the quality that we have in Japan at that price, it's a tremendous bang for your buck going to Japan in terms of quality price. So just wanted to slide that in there.
Absolutely, and I think with the outbound one, and maybe Zain, this is one more for you. Certainly on the outbound side of things, what we're seeing is there's a lot more VC interest from overseas and wanting to fund the types of project that can come out of Japan. So there's access to capital and overseas capital should Japanese companies wish to utilize that avenue.
Do you guys facilitate that? The access to capital from the US or else anywhere else in the world?
Yeah, we've been facilitating that this week. So we made the connections in January, but everything with the clients we're working for has kind of come to a head June of this year. So finally, we're able to leverage those connections, make those referrals, and kind of manage those interactions. Where am I going with this? I think I need some more coffee, guys. I think where I was going was, I think it's fine to make referral to Western VCs, whether it's from the US, UK, EU. But I think what's really important is managing both the VC expectations, because they need to understand how to have discussions with Japanese counterparts. Because I think VCs are programmed to be hyper efficient, and that's good. But with Japan being a high context culture and relationship driven, it doesn't matter how optimal or efficient your fund is, or how it's going to make this Japanese counterpart successful. Quite frankly, if they don't like you or they can't trust you, that will never get off the ground. Conversely, it's also really important to educate our Japanese counterparts that the level of information you need, the type of decks you need to submit to these VCs, and the preparedness that you need before you enter that discussion is just so much higher than what's currently requested in the Japanese market. So I guess it's about dual education and kind of managing expectations for both parties. One thing I'll say is that, especially for our Japanese counterparts, I often tell them that they should use, top class consultants from the country the VC originates on, because you really need someone who's, an apex predator in that market to help you with these negotiations, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, and it kind of comes, I guess, almost full circle to where we started the conversation. So again, getting across, I think, to Japanese companies, that whole framework with regards to quality by design really sets you up to be able to at least start to deal with the pace that American VCs, tend to want to operate at. UK and I guess EU VCs, not so necessarily aggressive, but certainly, having those foundations in place certainly help drive those interactions at a far better level, I think, as well.
Andrew, that's really good timing. I'm going to put this a lot less eloquently than Andrew put stuff, but from an overall point of view, we have numerous Japanese biotechs asking us, we want to be globally competitive. We want to operate at a global level. Yes, help us adopt quality by design, ICH guidelines. But when you actually discuss what that takes, because it is a bit mundane and it is a bit mendokusai to get that infrastructure up and running, oftentimes that initial enthusiasm, it kind of vanishes. But what's interesting is, if you want to compete globally, I think adopting these systems such as QBD, adopting ICH guidelines, it's not what you have to be. It's not what you have to adopt to be globally competitive. It's the bare minimum you have to adopt to be at the same starting line as global biotech. And I think that's really where Andrew and I have been trying to put in a lot of work this year.
But also to add on to that as well, it really then becomes the common language, I think, through which, you know, both sides are actually communicating. And I think that's where it really helps, you know, drive success from that point of view. It removes any kind of cultural nuance. It removes, I think, you know, the language barriers, things like that, because now everybody's working from a common language space, which is quality by design. So that's at least how I see it.
So there's an interesting paradox I've kind of realized right now in this conversation is that, you know, our impression is Japan's already quality driven and system driven. But what I'm hearing is there is a certain lack at the same time that there's not quality by design yet to a certain standard. So can you kind of explain where the mismatch might be in standards?
Yeah, so I'm not too sure whether it's a mismatch. It's as Zain was kind of indicating, and you see this not just in Japan, but certainly globally, in that people think, oh, quality by design, I'm really not sure how that fits in, and therefore I don't really need to do it now. And the reality is, you know, you adopt it now, it makes your whole movement throughout all your phases of development so much more efficient. The challenge is people look at it, and especially if, you know, you're strapped for cash, or you know, you have budgetary restrictions. It's, do I spend, you know, $1,000 or $10,000 on this now, where in fact, do I do it 2 years down the track? And what, you know, some CEOs don't necessarily realize, if you spend that now, it actually saves you millions down the track, because you are now within, you know, a quality driven and regulatory compliant position. So you are always moving within that framework, which means that your manufacturing, you pretty much bring it under control very, very quickly. It reduces your number of failures in manufacturing, in your assay development as well. And you're always being regulatory compliant as you move forward. So when people see it from that point of view, then it really starts driving it into an earlier system. So I don't think it's necessarily a mismatch. It's how and when do I bring it in? And I think that's the challenge that people have. And it's not necessarily that people are not being compliant. It's that they're not driving it in the way that they're going to be efficient as they move through the whole process. I think that's where it kind of sits, Ibrahim. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Well, to follow up on that, like, are there certain gaps that you see commonly within the Japanese technology or the methodology that, you know, often needs to kind of catch up on, and others that are, you know, we often talk about Japan's strengths that are, you know, already beyond, I guess, world class.
Yeah, and again, this is also a global challenge. You know, for example, in your process development, you know, how are you logging that? How are you actually keeping traceability across it? It's actually quite simple, but people think it's very complex to do it. And so that thought process, oh, this is really complex because now I'm having to bring quality in. And it's like, well, you're bringing quality in, but it's more around traceability rather than, you know, having to worry about deviations and all this kind of thing initially. So there are actually very simple fixes. So for example, you can develop things like, you know, a development protocol, which you update. It's a naturally evolving document, but it still tracks your traceability. So there's very simple things that you can put in place. But if you don't know and you don't understand how to do that, that's where the challenge then becomes. So again, you know, and I'm not, you know, sounding us to be the saviors, but certainly coming from that background where, you know, a lot of people have made that mistake in the past, and having that experience, you kind of say, maybe you should really reconsider how to do it. But also understanding the tricks as well, even down to small manufacturing tricks, how to fast track your assay development as well. Don't create something if it already exists off the shelf. You buy that in. It's easy enough to, work out whether it's, going to be fit for use or not with regards to all the different stages in your, process development as well. So it's being clever, and, experience, helps you get there. And if you don't have the experience, you end up making mistakes, which could potentially be catastrophic. And that's the challenge I think people face. And it's not just in Japan, but also globally too. So
I think, Ibrahim, just to add on that, we talk about Japan being poised for global development. It's a really high potential ecosystem. Even up to the government policy level, where there's support for the government. Without breaching confidentiality, what I can say is, I think the problem where the things are lost in translation is that there's a lack of efficiency in allocation and usage of that capital. For example, partnering with a recommended CDMO, the CDMO fails the first run. That partnership continues, or you double down on that mistake. It's quite an expensive mistake. And you really have to avoid stakeholder pressure in these situations and do what's best for development in the company. So I think fine-tuning efficiency, and then to go back to your original question in terms of, Japan is a very trusted market with quality and detail-oriented research. That's absolutely true. It's why discovery is so good here, why basic research is so good here. I think where the loss is happening is, Andrew mentioned, is that, Japan is a very detail-oriented country, especially in its medical research or biomedical research. But it's a question of getting what is already very obvious to the Japanese researcher down into a more global language, such as quality by design, utilizing ICH guidelines, doing all the correct process development. So really, I think what we're kind of preaching as a consultancy isn't even that you have to, remake the wheel. It's more just adapting what you already know into a more global research or development language.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Especially, Andrew, you mentioned traceability. That ran kind of as a keyword, buzzword for me, where the traceability aspect might not be completely set up correctly for a world language level.
Right.
Exactly. And it's making sure all those bits of the puzzle are really sitting there waiting to be utilized, which then brings your efficiency in your whole development program. So
Andrew, can we mention the types of clients we work with and the levels of traceability or lack thereof that we've seen?
Yes, just be cautious, I think.
Okay, so I'll give you a range then. We've met preclinical companies that are really getting behind the ICH guidelines, doing your TPP and your risk assessments from day one, planning everything down to a science. But we've also seen founders that are just kind of running around doing research, and you ask, where is the protocol? How are you doing this? And it's kind of, the answer is really, well, it's all in our heads, so we don't need to note it down just yet. And so, it's not really acceptable when you're thinking of going global, perhaps.
It's a common theme, though. That's the thing. It's not something that's unique to Japan.
Yeah.
And also, just one other thing, I don't know if we have time, Tetsu, but certainly what's nice about the Japanese system is that you also have the ASMR approach as well. So people can actually do a lot of clinical trials, but they're purely on a lower level that's not really being driven as commercial. PMDA only really come into play when you're starting to look at driving towards commercial product. So there's a really nice separation in Japan, which people are now realizing is actually really, really good, because you don't see that in FDA or with the EMA or any other jurisdictions at all. So it really helps fast track.
For those of us who don't know what ASMR is.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of
Perhaps
Kumar on
a
YouTube.
little word on what exactly MR is for.
So I guess it's another government branch that actually regulates the quality of product that people can make. So for example, at point of care sites, at hospitals, and they can utilize them in their clinic, for different indications as such. They're never actually looking at it as driving it towards a commercial product, but certainly there are guidelines within there where you still have to look at safety and efficacy as well, but you're not sort of driven by all the jurisdiction guidelines that predominantly are, around ICH as well. So does that help, or was that too complicated an explanation?
I think I can
I think
try
that's
to put it
fine
in layman's
for
terms.
folks from outside.
So really quickly, Tetsu, it's essentially allowing clinicians to fast-track therapies for their patients without having to go through as much regulatory scrutiny. The downside is that the liability then does lie with that clinician or doctor, but of course that is up to the doctor to take on or not.
So would the, I guess, closest example be like an investigator initiated, I guess not trial, but I guess a little bit further than a trial?
Yeah, I mean, that's how you would look at it. It's still clinical, but it's not even in the realms of having to be at phase 1 ready kind of level. So you can fast track things, which is good when you have, basically, people are going to be dying unless they get that particular treatment. So it really does help fast track a lot of that side of things in Japan. But then you also have, I guess, government review of, the protocols, all that kind of thing at a level that's understood for that level of investigation, rather than having PMDA people who could potentially, conflate where, the boundaries lie between those two different style of products. And I think that's one of the challenges for the West, especially. You can see that happening. And I think even within companies, you can see that happening, whereas Japan has really separated that very, very nicely. So.
Well, guys, it feels like we just started talking. I don't know how fast time is moving in Japan, but I'm at almost 10 minutes, 12 minutes from the top of the hour. It's incredible. We've gone pretty deep on some of these topics, but I'd like to kind of bring it a little bit back towards advice for Japanese companies going out or global companies coming in. What are the pitfalls you want to avoid? What are the things you want to go look for? I'll let you guys decide which direction, but to start. But companies coming in or companies going out, what are the things to look for? The good and the bad and the ugly?
I think, Andrew, do you want to go first, or shall I?
Yep. So I think going outward, it's really having good regulatory navigation around the jurisdiction you're looking to go into. So again, if you're going into the US, you really need that regulatory support, to look at the, how to navigate the FDA and how their system is set up, because the system is, and how you approach them is slightly different to how you would approach the PMDA. So having that support becomes fundamentally
Slightly?
important. I'm being polite.
Feels like you're kind of sugarcoating it a little bit.
But certainly, again, the ability to develop the CMC becomes fundamentally important. Certainly all the different jurisdictions, operate under ICH guidelines, but the reality is there are nuances across the board within each of, the the major types of assays that you would be utilizing for certain, for example, residuals as well. So again, understanding that and understanding what you need to do with regards to and who to co-develop your whole CMC package as well, because it becomes fundamental.
Outside of all the technical stuff, wouldn't you agree that culture is also ingrained in the different regulatory authorities? I mean, you can just feel it. Some of the things that they look for, the things that they say, the kind of rebuttals and the responses. Yeah, all that required.
Yeah, and how you approach the regulatory organizations is fundamentally different to how you position yourself, and also the question you need to ask. Understanding all those different nuances, and it becomes really, really important to be successful, and you do need help to navigate your way through those systems. For example, no, you go.
No, I was just going to say, so that's looking out for the things, the pitfalls, or the things that you want to watch out for. But what are Japanese companies really good at when they go out that allows them to succeed outside of Japan relative to companies coming, let's say in the US, but European companies coming in and Japanese companies coming in? What allows a Japanese company to succeed, that they should capitalize on, that those skills or whatever it is that you think?
I think that's the two biggest ones are probably caution and doing due diligence before they partner with anybody. I think that's the single biggest thing you can do. And then the second would also be capital discipline. Do I really need to spend on this? Is this really going to, I hate saying this, but move the needle, so to speak? Those two are probably the biggest ones. What I want to add is it's a bit of a double-edged sword, where my advice to our Japanese counterparts navigating Western markets would be, stay strict with your spending, stay cautious, but also be self-aware and introspective enough to the point where you're delving into the realm of too much caution and you're losing time and momentum. I think the most successful biotechs I've seen, whether Japanese or Western, are those who kind of have a middle ground approach. So they're cautious when they need to be. They're very disciplined with their expenditure, but they also have a keen instinct of when we really just need to move, so to speak. And going, sorry,
no, you go. No, you go.
Going back to your original question as well, I think the overarching rules or advice I can give are the same for whether it's inbound or outbound, but using local fractional and specialist consulting teams who are native to that area is a given. Strictness with your expenditure, having everything planned via risk assessments, for example, and runway and resource allocation. But then for Japan inbound, what's really important is really understanding the nuance of Japan. So a case study example we have recently is, this firm wanted to enter, I guess, the life science market or the medical device market in Japan. They had a third-party market research firm do all the market research for Japan. In terms of the economics and the actual market, it was a really good piece of research that I was evaluating. But what I noticed was, all the PMDA nuance was completely lost. And that says to me that, use your local subject matter experts to safely navigate those markets.
Yeah, I was just going to add, with regards to what Japanese companies bring to the table when they're actually wanting to go outbound, certainly, I think the depth of knowledge of the science, they're certainly experts in what they do. They understand the disease indication. Pretty much most of the time, they already have mode of action worked out as well, so they're ready to go. They're also very cautious as well, which, as Zain said, is a double-edged sword. Sometimes Japanese companies, that caution is makes sense and is, you know, fundamentally saves them from, you know, a lot of heartache. But at the same time, if you're too cautious, you know, and too risk averse, it also becomes challenging. And so, you know, what we've found, for example, you know, if people start building out, you know, truly their development plan on a Gantt chart and really understand what all the different interactions need to be and how they actually influence each other, that takes out a lot of the risk in their understanding of how the development process needs to go. And therefore they can still utilize that caution, but they know exactly where they need to be and how they're going to move through things over time as well. I think that's one of the challenges that Japanese companies have. So the positives are there, but, you know, slight negatives there too. But certainly there's means and methods in which, you know, you can move those forward very, very quickly. So from that point of view, you know, I think, you know, the challenges and the positive aspects that, you know, Japan companies wanting to move out are already there. They just need a little bit more streamlining to, you know, allow the commitment to move forward. Yeah, that's how I see it anyway.
Fantastic, indeed. All right, we are getting close. We usually close with, you know, more trend, forward-looking, philosophical questions. Are we ready for that, Ibrahim?
Let's go for it.
So, in the few minutes remaining, tell us what's coming up in the world of advanced therapies or more life science in general with respect to Japan and the rest of the world. What's the big trend that's coming up in a year, in 3 years, in 5 years? Where are we in 10 years? I don't know. What are you looking at?
I'm going to speak very generally and leave the specifics to Andrew because he's much more good at the specifics. This might be a vibes-based explanation of what's going on right now, but I think it is as factually accurate as I can make it. For Japan specifically, I think they're at a critical juncture in their development where all the resources, the potential, the probability of success has pooled within the country. Slowly but surely, they're about to fire the starting gun. It's already been fired. But what's really going to determine whether this, you know, fight or flight moment for Japan is a success or not is, I guess, the efficiency and the streamlining of how they develop forward, as well as a cultural adaptation. I think the most successful companies will be those that understand the value of the Japanese approach, but also the need to speed up and commercialize. And for Western partners, it will be those that can kind of lower their very proactive approach and meet Japanese counterparts in the middle. In terms of Japan's drug loss problem, I think everything is as lined up as it can be to combat it. The bottom line is just going to be execution. Can we execute it right?
Yeah, and just to add on to that quickly, so certainly I think that IPS is definitely going to be a huge driver for Japan. Certainly what a lot of people are now looking at, especially with the new CRISPR type of technology coming on board, is how do you turn a product that would usually be autologous into something that you can now drive as an allogeneic type of system, because that really changes your manufacturing spec and your capability across the board. And certainly I think that's really what we're seeing. I think in Asia as a whole, there does seem to be, you know, a lot more exosome-based products being developed as well, more so than Europe and potentially even in the US too. So again, these are certain aspects that we're seeing, especially in Japan, that are big drivers. And, you know, the I guess ecosystem is there to actually help them drive those particular ones as well. And of course, there's all the other systems as well, you know, based on, you know, different types of antibody approaches as well. But also, you know, I think on the small molecule side of things as well, I think, you know, we're going to see a lot more of that coming back into play.
Come back?
Well. Yeah. But let's see how the whole shift from autologous to being able to change those into allogeneic approaches as well, also drive things. But again, you're looking forward, I think combination therapies are going to be the way of the future as well. And I think people are now realizing that too, especially in Japan. And you're seeing a lot of really good collaborations, not just within Japan, but also within, Japan and the rest of APAC, as well as they drive things forward. So.
I know we're running over. I just want to add to the APAC part. We've talked a lot about Japan and the US/UK EU. I think within APAC specifically, there are a lot of emerging markets and a lot of high potential therapies in Taiwan, Singapore, Korea, China, etc. I think one country that's probably going to play a really big role in biotech outside of geopolitics is Taiwan. I know in biotech, the US is quite deeply interested in Taiwan. I know a lot of our Japanese counterparts have very high functioning and efficient relationships with Taiwanese biotech. We're also working with several Taiwanese biotech, and some of the stuff they're sitting on is absolute gold. And I think a lot of Japanese farmers kind of caught onto that trend and is already in open discussions with Taiwanese counterparts. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think also if you look, at the Middle East, but also Africa as well, where you're actually seeing big, huge regulatory drivers there, it's really opening things up quite a lot as well. So again, there's more avenues for inbound and outbound capability, I think, for everybody, especially for Japan. So
it's 9:01, 9:02.
Yeah. I'll be quiet.
You guys are okay.
So bottom line is more cross-border work, more cross-border collaborations than less going forward. All right. And that's good. That's good for everybody. Exchanges of ideas, exchanges of culture, exchanges of way of being, way of doing. All this is good for humanity. And on that note, any last messages? Each one of you?
I have one, Tetsu, and it's jumping off of what you just said. Moving away from biotech for a moment, it's quite bleak globally right now. Society is moving towards a point where we're becoming a lot more tribalistic, despite it being 2026. And, our overlord, so to speak, would love for society to be incredibly divided. I think a lot of success commercially, but also as human beings, will come from unity and kind of getting past our cultural differences. If you see some of the potential blockbuster drugs coming out of Japan as an example, it's come from cross-border collaboration. I think the four of us on this call, because of our multiculturality, also understand the value of cross-border work and mutual understanding. And I think for me, it's a no-brainer. If you can get value from cross-border collaboration and understanding, that's great. But also now is probably the time to really start breaking down those walls and working as a team.
Yeah, and I think if you look really, really closely, at the roots of everything, there is a lot of collaboration already going on. It's how do you circumvent's not the right word. How do you utilize the systems that are in place, despite the geopolitical, I guess, challenges that we face, to really keep those kind of, collaborations going? I think it's fundamentally key because they are there. You go down and you talk to people. There's huge collaborations between, Singapore, Japan, going both ways, even within Taiwan, even in China, Korea as well, despite, this concept of being quite closed, there are a lot of collaborations going on as well. And, that needs to keep happening because eventually it will break down those barriers, I think, as people realize, the world is
I love
quite
it.
a small place. Yeah.
I love seeing the increase in these cross-border collaborations, not just US and elsewhere in the world. Like you say, more in proximity. I see IPARC and Korea, do a lot of these memorandums, and I see Fukuoka and Taiwan getting very, very close. And so it's tremendous. It's tremendous. So
It's
on that
there. It's
beautiful note,
happening. Yeah.
it is in real time. The
Yeah.
world is getting smaller and smaller, and here we are doing a live stream. One from Montreal, one from. Are you in Florida, Ibrahim?
That's where I
And
am.
then the folks in Kobe. Everything in real time, talking about global collaborations. So thank you guys so much from
you.
GRA. Thank you for sharing your expertise and your time. And we'll definitely do this again.
So I want to end with today BioBridge went global from Japan. Really, I love it.
We were glad to be here. It's a privilege, guys. Seriously, it's a privilege.
Thank you very much.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Cheers, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Take
care,
care.
guys.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.